In the relentless solitude of the Mojave Desert, our driver's fate hung in the balance. Suddenly, a set of headlights emerged from the darkness directly in his path. Unable to ascertain their distance or speed, our driver instinctively slammed on his brakes, each second ticking away like a heart. Beat, the headlights remained fixed, unwavering in their intensity. Was it a fellow trucker sharing the desolate highway, or something more sinister? Now, moments stretched into an eternity before the mysterious vehicle finally veered onto the shoulder, its taillights disappearing into the blackness. Adrenaline surged through our driver as he cautiously crept forward, desperate to resume his journey. However, as he strained to peer into the darkness, he noticed something horrifying. The same set of headlights now loomed directly behind him, their menacing glow illuminating the dust on his trailer. Terror gripped him as he realized the full horror of his situation. He had become the prey of a deranged stalker who reveled in the power of unchallenged pursuit. With each passing moment, the threat escalated, driving him toward a horrifying climax. Trapped on a deserted highway, under the merciless glare of the desert sun, our driver found himself ensnared by an unseen stalker. The relentless hum of the engine reverberated through his bones, a constant reminder of the danger lurking just beyond his vision. His attempts to shake off the feeling of being watched were futile. The stalker's presence was a suffocating shadow, casting an ominous pall over his every move. Driven by desperation, our driver made a split-second decision. He veered off the highway, plunging into a dry, sandy ditch. The jarring descent scraped metal against rock, sending a shower of sparks into the air. He clawed his way out, adrenaline surging through him. But the escape was short-lived. The stalker's headlights flared, their cold, accusing stare boring into him. Cornered and terrified, our driver knew he couldn't outrun this nightmare. His engine died, leaving him at the mercy of his pursuer. With trembling hands, he dialed 911, his voice shaking as he reported his predicament. But the call was dropped due to poor reception. The highway patrol was alerted, but in this desolate expanse, help seemed a distant beacon in the unending darkness. As the minutes ticked by, the tension ratcheted up. Then, just when it seemed the horror would never end, the stalker's car door opened and a man emerged, his face hidden in the shadows. Our driver watched, frozen with fear, as the man walked slowly toward him. In the flickering light of the headlights, our driver saw the stalker raise his arms, palms out as if in some macabre greeting. Our driver's scream echoed into the vast emptiness, swallowed by the darkness. The last thing he remembered was the blinding flash of headlights before everything went black. When the highway patrol arrived at the scene, they found the driver's truck abandoned on the side of the road. His whereabouts remained a mystery. Some believe the driver managed to escape, while others suspect he fell victim to a crime in the desolate desert. The case remains unsolved, a haunting reminder of the dangers that lurk on the open road. As dawn remained about an hour away, the trucker's exhausted eyes caught sight of something that shouldn't have been there. Through the murky gloom ahead, an object was approaching fast, too fast and too low to be another truck. His first thought was wildlife, perhaps a deer or coyote that had wandered onto the highway. Desert animals are notorious for their unpredictable behavior, especially during the twilight hours, when their natural instincts draw them across human pathways in search of food or water. Reacting with the split-second timing that only comes from years of highway driving, he slammed his brakes with tremendous force. The massive semi-truck groaned and screeched in protest, its air brakes hissing loudly as tons of steel and cargo fought against momentum. When the dust settled and his heart rate began to slow, he found himself staring at something far more disturbing than any wild animal. Positioned directly in front of his truck, mere inches from his front bumper, sat a red Ford Fusion with its hazard lights blinking rhythmically in the pre-dawn darkness. But this wasn't a simple breakdown or accident scene. The car was positioned with eerie precision exactly in the center of the highway, straddling the double yellow line as if someone had deliberately placed it there as an obstruction. Even more unsettling was the passenger door, which hung wide open like an invitation, or perhaps a warning. The scene defied logical explanation. In 15 years of trucking, he had encountered plenty of disabled vehicles, but they were always pulled to the shoulder, often with drivers frantically waving for assistance or huddled inside making phone calls. This car seemed deliberately abandoned in the most dangerous possible position. as if someone wanted to ensure it would be noticed by passing traffic. The hazard lights continued their hypnotic rhythm, casting alternating shadows across the desert landscape and creating an almost strobing effect in the dim morning light. Despite his reputation as someone who could handle himself in tough situations, a man comfortable in barroom confrontations and unafraid of most challenges life threw his way, something about this scene made his instincts scream warnings. The positioning was too deliberate, too strange, too perfectly calculated to block traffic in this remote location. Nevertheless, his natural inclination to help fellow travelers in distress overrode his growing sense of unease. After carefully reversing his semi and positioning it safely on the shoulder, he made the fateful decision to investigate further. Unaware that he was walking directly into someone else's carefully laid trap, the silence pressed against me, thick and heavy as I stared into the empty car. Where was the driver? Where was anyone? The closest town was 20, maybe 30 minutes away, but this stretch of highway was rarely used, especially not at night. My gut twisted. I should have kept driving. There was something about this scene, the isolation, the stillness, that set off alarm bells in my head. But I'd seen a car, and I'd hoped it was another traveler like me, someone who needed help. But what kind of person leaves a perfectly good car in the middle of nowhere? And why does it look like the inside of this car has been cleaned? Cleaned, I repeat. Cleaned. Who cleans the inside of their car while parked in the middle of the desert, and then runs off without their belongings? Without their phone, their wallet, their jacket, their life? A bead of sweat trickled down my neck. I was out here in the middle of nowhere with a car full of mysteries, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I walked back to my truck, my boots crunching on the asphalt, each step echoing in the stillness. I grabbed my rifle from the seat, its familiar weight, a grounding presence in the face of the unknown. As I stood there scanning the darkness, a low growl rumbled in my chest, half a threat, half a question. Who's out there? What are you? The desert wind shifted, carrying with it the faintest hint of movement, a whisper against the stillness. My heart pounded against my ribs as I strained to listen. Was I imagining things? Or was there really a sound out there beyond the click of my truck has hazard lights? I couldn't tell. My eyes darted between the darkness on either side of the road, searching for any sign of movement, any indication that I was not alone in this desolate expanse. The silence pressed in on me, amplifying the pounding of my heart, making it feel like a drum solo in the vast orchestra of the night. Was I truly alone? Or was there someone lurking just beyond my sight, watching me, waiting for me to turn my back completely? The hair on the back of my neck prickled. I was not alone. Something was out there in the desert with me. I could feel it watching me, waiting for me to make the next move. And I knew with a certainty that sent shivers down my spine that this was only the beginning. What the hell? That was my first thought when I saw the abandoned car. Curiosity, and a stubborn determination to solve this mystery, compelled me to continue my investigation. The car keys dangled invitingly from the ignition, as if someone had wanted them to be icily found. Who abandons a vehicle in the middle of nowhere while leaving the keys behind? It suggested either extreme carelessness or deliberate planning. Given the meticulously empty interior of the car, carelessness seemed increasingly unlikely. I retrieved the keys and made my way to the rear of the vehicle, where the trunk waited like a sealed vault containing answers to this desert puzzle. My first attempt to open it met with unexpected resistance. The trunk refused to budge despite the key turning smoothly in the lock. This wasn't the resistance of a broken mechanism or rusted hinges. Something was actively preventing the trunk from opening, as if it had been secured from the inside. This discovery sent another wave of unease through me, but my determination to understand what was happening overrode my growing fear. Returning to the car's interior, I folded down the back seats, creating access to the trunk space through the rear passenger compartment. The moment I peered into the dark cavity, my heart rate spiked dramatically. 3 large garbage bags lay crammed into the trunk space, their bulky shapes distorted and unnatural in the dim light filtering through from my truck's headlights. The bags appeared to contain substantial weight, their plastic surfaces stretched tight around mysterious contents that created odd, bulging shapes. Most disturbing of all was the rope that had been threaded through the trunk's latch mechanism and tied in multiple complex knots, effectively sealing the trunk from the inside. This wasn't a simple closure or security measure. It was a deliberate attempt to prevent anyone from easily accessing the trunk's contents from the outside. The rope appeared fresh and strong, suggesting this entire setup was recent. Someone had gone to considerable trouble to secure whatever was in those bags, ensuring they remained hidden until the right moment. As I reached toward the nearest bag, extending my hand to within inches of the mysterious contents, every instinct developed over 15 years of highway travel, every survival mechanism honed through countless encounters with dangerous situations, screamed at me to step away immediately. But before I could act on these warnings, the desert night exploded with sound, shattering the oppressive silence, and transforming my investigation into a desperate fight for survival. The thunderous crack of a gunshot rang out across the vast emptiness, its echo bouncing off distant rock formations and confirming my worst fears. I am not alone in this desolate place. Whoever else is out there, just announce their presence in the most threatening way possible. That was close. Real close. Yeah, the voice startled me. Me too. Whoever he is, he's definitely coming. Wait, I think he saw me. Oh God. What do? We gotta get out of here now. Yeah, wait, where are my glasses? Can't see a damn thing without my glasses. Here, take these. They'll help you see better. Thanks. Okay, let's go. Come on, let's go. Come on, hurry up. Please, 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 let's just go. Please. Wait. I think I hear something. Yeah, I hear it too. Whoever that is, he's getting closer. Hurry up, please. Hurry up. Come on. Almost there. Okay, I can see. I think I see what's going on. What is it? There's a bunch of garbage bags in the back seat. God, what if they're full of money? What if we get arrested? No, worse than arrested. We'd be dead. Hey. Whoa, what are you doing? Hey, wait. Wait a minute. Hey, whoa, wait. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you here? Who are you? What do you want? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know where this guy came from. I swear to God, I didn't see him before. I was just driving down the road, and then he started shooting at me. Shooting at you? Why? I don't know. That's why I ran away. And you followed me here. I didn't mean to follow you. I swear to God, I didn't mean to. I only wanted to get away from him. From who? From that guy. Where is he? He ran off into the desert. Think he might have taken something with him. What, those bags? Yeah, those bags. What were those bags? I don't know what they were. All I know is I didn't want to be around when he came back. Okay. Listen, I need you to do something for me. I need you to drive to this gas station, okay? And when you get there, I need you to top off your tank and then get out of here. Get out of town. Okay, I want to, but I can't leave you. We should stick together. No, you'll be safer if you do what I'm asking. Please. Okay. If that's what you want? For the first few minutes of his desperate flight through the desert darkness, the trucker allowed himself to believe he had successfully escaped the nightmare behind him. The steady drone of his diesel engine and the familiar vibration of the highway beneath his wheels provided a comforting return to normalcy after the surreal horror of the abandoned car encounter. His breathing began to slow, and the adrenaline coursing through his system started to subside as mile after mile of empty highway passed beneath his truck. Perhaps the armed stranger had simply let him go, preferring to return to whatever dark business had brought him to that desolate spot with his shovel and mysterious cargo. But that fragile sense of security shattered completely when he caught sight of headlights rapidly approaching in his rear-view mirror. The lights were moving far too fast for casual highway traffic, and their aggressive, purposeful advance left no doubt about their intent. The red Ford Fusion had somehow been started and was now pursuing him across the empty desert with the determination of a predator chasing prey. Terror, unlike anything he had experienced in 15 years of trucking, flooded through the driver's system as he realized the full implications of his situation. He was alone on a remote desert highway being pursued by an armed individual whose intentions were clearly malevolent, with the nearest town potentially hours away. His hands trembling, he managed to dial 911 on his cell phone, while maintaining control of his speeding semi. Frantically explaining the situation to the dispatcher in broken, panic-stricken sentences. The dispatcher's calm, professional questions seemed almost surreal against the backdrop of his desperate flight, but he managed to provide his location and a description of his pursuer. The Ford Fusion closed the distance with alarming speed, the smaller size and lighter weight giving it a significant advantage over the massive semi-truck. When the car finally reached his rear bumper, it began an assault of aggressive honking that echoed across the empty desert like the war cry of some mechanical beast. The sound was constant and maddening, a psychological weapon designed to increase his panic and force him into making a mistake. The trucker found himself caught between impossible choices. He couldn't outrun the car, couldn't safely stop to confront an armed individual, couldn't continue this dangerous high-speed chase indefinitely without risking a catastrophic accident. The situation reached its most terrifying peak when the Ford Fusion suddenly swerved into the left lane pulled alongside his cab, then cut sharply in front of him and slammed on its brakes in a classic aggressive driving maneuver designed to force him to slow down or risk a collision. For a heart-stopping moment, the trucker found himself staring at the rear bumper of the Ford Fusion growing larger in his windshield, his foot hovering over the brake pedal as he calculated whether he could stop his massive rig in time to avoid smashing the smaller vehicle. The physics of stopping a fully loaded semi-truck at highway speeds meant that any collision would likely be fatal for the Ford's occupant, but the armed stranger seemed willing to risk even that outcome to force a confrontation. Just as the trucker was certain he would either crash into the Ford or be forced to stop and face whatever the armed stranger had planned, salvation appeared in the form of flashing police lights on the horizon ahead. The patrol car's emergency lights cut through the pre-dawn darkness like a beacon of hope, and the effect on his pursuer was immediate and dramatic. The Ford Fusion veered sharply to the right, left the highway entirely, and disappeared into the vast desert terrain, its headlights quickly swallowed by the darkness. The trucker pulled over immediately, his hands shaking so violently he could barely turn off his engine, and waited for the police officer to approach his cab, ready to tell his incredible story to someone who might actually be able to help him make sense of what had just happened. On a deserted stretch of highway, a lone trucker's worst nightmare unfolded, leaving him battered, bruised, yet oddly unmoved by the police response. His tale was one of a deserted Ford Fusion, a menacing stranger with digging equipment and a high-speed desert chase that ended not with a bang, but with an unsettling whimper. As the patrol officer approached the trucker's cab, seasoned desert highway veteran's instincts told him this was no ordinary driver's encounter. The trucker's face was pale, his eyes wide with a harrowing tale to tell. He spoke of a lone car positioned deliberately in the middle of the highway, of mysterious garbage bags secured with rope in the trunk, of a sudden emergence of an armed stranger, and a subsequent desperate high-speed chase that had just ended. As the trucker recounted his terrifying ordeal, a mixture of skepticism and intrigue played across the officer's face. It sounded like something from a horror movie, not a routine incident report. The absence of physical evidence or witnesses made substantiating the story nearly impossible. The officer's training kicked in, focusing on procedure and evidence gathering. He listened intently, occasionally nodding, but his mind raced, searching for a logical explanation. Where was the body? Why hadn't the trucker called 911 during the chase? How could a sane person mistake a stranger with a shovel for someone needing assistance? The officer knew that the highway was a popular route for smugglers and drug runners. But the story the trucker told was far from the usual narcotics operation. It was a cat-and-mouse game played out on a lonely stage, leaving the audience terrified and confused. The absence of a body made the story even more perplexing. Had there been a struggle? Was the individual still at large in the desert? Or was this a carefully staged scene with the intention of frightening the driver? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the highway, the officer's thoughts raced. How many other drivers had fallen prey to this individual? Was there more to this case than met the eye? What had begun as a routine traffic stop had transformed into a puzzle with pieces that refused to fit. The missing pieces of the puzzle were the key to solving the case. But as night fell, the highway grew quieter, the silence broken only by the wind and the distant hum of crickets. The officer was left with more questions than answers. Each mile marker, another reminder of the unknown lurking in the darkness. On a desolate stretch of highway in rural America, a lone truck stop offered weary travelers a semblance of refuge. It was here that a horrifying crime unfolded, exposing the darkness that can lurk in the most unsuspecting corners of society. Our first story today comes from a desolate truck stop in rural America. Imagine a lone truck stop on a desolate stretch of highway. It's a place where weary travelers seeking respite can find gas, food, and a moment's reprieve from the endless road. But on this particular day, the sanctuary of the truck stop turned into a scene of a terrifying crime. At the heart of this horror story is a brutal attack on a 21-year-old driver who had pulled over at the truck stop for a much-needed break. As he dozed off in his cab, he was awoken to the shock of his life. A stranger had entered his truck and was rummaging through his belongings. The victim's desperate attempt to flee was thwarted when the assailant blocked the door, trapping him inside. A struggle ensued, during which the victim sustained a stab wound. In a horrifying turn of events, the perpetrator proceeded to drain the victim's bank account using a stolen credit card. Adding insult to injury, the thief made a mockery of the situation by leaving behind a calling card. A handwritten note that read, "Hope you're enjoying the hotel." This chilling message was a testament to the calculated cruelty of the offender, who seemed to derive pleasure from tormenting his victim. In the aftermath of this harrowing ordeal, law enforcement officials were faced with a perplexing mystery. The motive behind the crime seemed unclear, and the trail of the perpetrator was cold. As the investigation stalled, the victim was left grappling not only with the physical pain of his injuries, but also with the trauma of the violation and the unanswered questions that haunted him. And now, for our second story today. Our second story is a chilling account of a truck driver. Its terrifying ordeal at the hands of a cunning predator who preyed on him during a routine trip. Let me paint the picture. A young man, just 21 years old, decides to venture into the world of long-haul trucking. He's not your typical truck driver. He's young, educated, tech-savvy, and he sees trucking as a way to break away from the mundane, embracing instead an exciting, dynamic lifestyle. As he navigates the vast highways, he encounters a diverse cast of characters: truck stop bandits, curious onlookers, and seasoned drivers who share tales of the road. But it's in these very moments that the allure of the open road begins to fade, placed by a gnawing feeling of isolation and exhaustion. He logs on to social media platforms, sharing glimpses into his life on the road, documenting his experiences for an online audience. But with each passing day, the thrill of the journey gives way to the grim realities of the profession. Long hours, tedious routes, and the crushing solitude of the road take their toll on his spirit. Yet he presses on, fueled by the promise of financial stability and the hope that things will eventually get better. That is, until his fateful trip from New Jersey to Indiana takes a horrifying turn. As he drives through the night, he finds himself at a deserted truck stop, a lonely oasis in the darkness. But what should be a moment of respite turns into a nightmare. A chilling encounter that will forever change his perception of the trucking industry. If you like this story, please stay tuned for more. We have more videos coming up. Thank you for watching.